Check, check. Hey, you guys there? I'm here. Decided to do this like last minute because I had a video scheduled for today, and I was gonna do a video with somebody, and it got rescheduled. So I thought I would try this live stream thing like in earnest. So I've actually got the guitar hooked up as well. So the output of Pro Tools is going into my little camera interface thing, and then going into my little streaming box. So hey, let me know if you're there. If you can hear everything. Where's the chat? This is all new to me. Okay, so I think I'll see the chat if you guys decide to start chatting me up or whatever. But yes, 0 watching, 1 watching. I think that's me watching myself. So let me know if you're there. Shoot me a comment. Not now. Yeah, there's the chat. Oh, looks like you can tip me too. Hey, if you guys want to tip me, I mean, please feel free. Just kind of waiting for other people to get here. I want to wait for at least one other person to get here. If you're here, hey, give me a shout out. Maybe you'll get a special prize. I'm gonna go live on Instagram too. You guys ready for this? You guys aren't ready for this. Live on Instagram. Hey, we're gonna be talking today about some studio stuff, studio roles. I've wanted to do a video on this for a while, and I may do one in the future in earnest, but I wanted to talk about, oops, I think I lost it. Sorry. Oh, no, we're back. We're good. I wanted to talk about roles in the studio. People have asked me before, hey, what does a producer do in the studio? What does an engineer do? What does, you know, an assistant do? What is mixing and mastering and things like that? Hey, Eric R. Love it. Eric R., my first live watcher. You are a special person, Eric R. And thank you for saying you love the telly. I love the telly too. Hopefully that's coming through. I've got a little Mobius tremolo on there. I got a little M300 reverb, timeline delay, and Anasound Savage, which is like a Klon type of thing going into my Jackson. So I'm just going to start talking, and then, hey, if anybody has questions, please feel free to ask in the chat there. But I want to go through really briefly what the whole, in a typical recording studio setup, what the roles are for the producer, the engineer, you know, everybody involved in the record. So typically, and this is, you know, this has changed throughout the years a lot, and more often than not today, you have people who are wearing way more than one hat. They're the producer, they're the engineer, they're the, you know, they're a musician on the album, they're maybe the artist as well. They mix it, they master it, they do everything. And that's because, you know, back in the day, recording was a lot more of a specialized kind of thing, and it was more like a science lab, and you had specialists who worked, you know, just in certain areas, and those roles have morphed into, you know, and not only in the audio industry, but in movies too. I've heard of the Predator, which is the producer, director, editor. It's kind of similar with being in the studio, but even though I'm sort of one of these multi, you know, faceted producer, engineer, artist, musician, whatever, but it's helpful for me to know what those roles are, because I can sort of wear different hats depending on what artist I'm working with, or something I'm producing, or something I'm just playing on as a musician or whatever. It's helpful to know these terms. So a producer typically is the person who's like in charge of the project. So they might also be an engineer, which we'll talk about in a second, but a producer is like the person, the guy or gal who's like the buck stops with them. They make sort of the final decision along with the artist. So a lot of times they work very closely with an artist. A lot of times a producer will even co-write songs, or at least have input on songs for an artist and be like, hey, I don't think this bridge is like ready yet, or whatever, or I think you need to work on this song, or be involved in the choosing of songs, like with an artist. They typically help develop the artist. And when I'm wearing kind of my producer hat, I'm always looking for like an artist to help, that I want to work with, that I want to help to elevate their art. And a lot of times, if people haven't been in the studio before, it's like they're very green, or they're like they don't really know what they're doing, or whatever. A producer is like a seasoned musician and someone who's been in the industry for a while, or done a lot of records, and can see like a potential in somebody and go, hey, I want to make your record. I think I understand what you're all about as an artist, and I want to help you like be everything you can become. I want to make your dreams come true. So yeah, you have to have like really good people skills when you're a producer. I sometimes call producers like pastors. They're like you need to really care for the artist. I think at its best, sometimes producers, they have to balance, if they're working sort of alongside a label or whatever, between the pure like art that an artist wants to do, and then maybe what is sellable in the market, and they're always trying to sort of find that balance. For me, I work with like local artists and my friends and stuff. So I'm not really thinking about sellability, but I am thinking about relatability when I produce an album. I'm not. So sometimes those two are the same, because it's like you want to translate your song to the biggest audience possible, right? So that might mean, making it a little more catchy, or making the song shorter or whatever. A lot of songcraft, is making it palatable and listenable for the masses. And I love doing that. I love actually making music that a lot of people can understand. I like nerding out over crazy weird music too. But in general, when I work in the studio, in general, an artist wants to reach the widest amount of people possible. They want to share their art with like the world. And so, yeah, it's a balance between like, I want to be like true to this artist's like vision, but I also want to translate that vision into something that, other people can appreciate and understand. And so, yeah, it's a fine balance, and you got to work on it over, you got to work on your communication skills. You got to work on your people skills. Also, when you're in the studio and you're a producer, you need to know what to say to an artist to kind of like get the best out of them. You need to encourage them while also, having constructive criticism. And that's an art that you sort of learn over the years, and just from many years of doing it, I've learned like what works and what doesn't. It's different for every artist too. Some people are very sensitive to criticism. Others, they want you to like criticize them more. And so you got to learn, you got to like navigate that when you're first meeting with an artist. Like, okay, what's their vibe? I'm going to like feel this out. By default, I generally, start with like just really encouraging an artist. And then if they're like, yeah, but tell me what do I need to fix though? What sucks about this song or whatever? Then I'll dig in a little bit or whatever, because I have opinions. But another thing I've learned as a producer is like my opinions are really just my opinions. There's music out there that's really popular that I'm like, I don't like it. So it's not necessarily, my opinion is not always the right, way to do things. And I've learned that as well over the years. And so I'm cautious with how not cautious. I guess I sort of test the waters when I'm working with a new artist or whatever. But in general, that's what a producer does. So they sort of like, they take the artist from like zero to like finished album. And a lot of times the producer will pick the engineer, will pick the musicians, will sometimes be one of the musicians, will pick the studio, will be in charge of the budget, will pick the mixing engineer. So they're like, you know, if you get a good producer and you let them sort of take you under their wing as an artist, or if that's what you want to do, you know, you need to, that's what they do. It's like they're in charge of the whole thing. Can't blame anybody else if the record sounds bad. Blame the producer, because it's their fault. Or it's their fault if it sounds great. So you bear the responsibility. An engineer on a record is, you know, if the producer's like the director on a film, the engineer's like the cinematographer. An engineer, you know, again, back in the day, engineers wore lab coats in the studio. If you look back to some of like the Beatles recordings in the 60s and stuff, like these guys like wearing lab coats recording, which is hilarious to me now because it's such like an artsy, like cool thing now to be an audio engineer. But back in the day, it was just science. It was electronics, you know, and that was their training. But yeah, now the engineer is basically the person who technically makes the album happen. So they know a lot about microphones, microphone technique. They're setting up the microphones. They're plugging in the microphones. They're routing on the patch bay with the console. They know, you know, mixing consoles. They know outboard gear. They're deciding what compressor to go through, what preamp, what EQ, how to EQ something to make it sound a certain way. An engineer works in tandem with a producer to get like a desired result. So a producer may say, hey, make it sound XYZ, make it sound warmer, make it sound like the Killer's snare drum, you know, or whatever. And then the engineer's like, got it, I know how to do that. You know, whatever it is. The Killers, it's like really, really aggressive, pushed, like bright. That's, you know, they know how to translate that from just an idea or a sound that a producer's saying into a reality on a record. Like, no, make it warmer or whatever. How do you do that? You need to be able to translate that as an engineer. As a producer too, because an artist will say, oh, you know, I don't know, I want it to be darker. And then as a producer, you know, you're like, okay, what do they mean by darker? Do they mean, you know, less top end, or do they mean mood wise, like darker? Or, you know, what do they mean by that? And then they will, you know, communicate that to an engineer if you have like an actual engineer on a project. So that's typically what an engineer does, you know, in short anyway. They're usually running Pro Tools in the studio, or, you know, running the console, running microphones, doing all that kind of stuff. And then an assistant in the studio is just like assisting the engineer. So maybe the producer will say, hey, I want the snare to sound warmer. The engineer will be like, oh, hey, let's try a different mic. Assistant, go put the different mic on the drum kit or whatever. It's, you know, an assistant obviously is just the person who assists the engineer typically. And then sometimes they will work, you know, this is what I did when I lived in Nashville. I was like an assistant to a big producer. And when they needed like vocals tuned, when they needed drums edited, they would send me away into a dark corner of the studio with a hard drive and be like, okay, Aaron, go edit the drums, go tune the vocals, and then bring them back. You know, so you get stuck with like the grunt work, and you got to work your way up or whatever. A lot of times assistants are getting lunch for people, making copies of chord charts. That's what I did. As an intern first, not getting paid, and then eventually getting paid a little bit, and then eventually working my way up to being like an assistant engineer and an engineer or whatever, and then kind of doing my own thing. I have a pretty typical story of that, like working your way up. I don't know if that happens quite as much anymore because there's definitely not nearly as much work as there used to be for studio guys, but yeah, that's typically what an assistant does. And then two more things, mix engineer and mastering engineer. There are other people involved in making a record, obviously, but the mix engineer, that's the person who, once you've tracked everything, they combine all those tracks either on a big console in a studio or just in Pro Tools inside the box, which is how I do it. into you know, a cohesive, beautiful sounding, punchy, radio friendly mix. And mixing, this is like more and more specialized, you know, that we're getting as we climb up this ladder here. Not a lot of people who exclusively do mixing. If you can get that gig, then great, do it. I do that as part of my job. I love doing it because it's like it's just me in the studio, and I can kind of shut out the world, and I know all my tricks to get, you know, the drums sounding great, to get the vocals, you know, beautiful and creamy and amazing sounding. And I love kind of taking something, even from somebody where I didn't record it, and going, okay, they're going to love this when it's over. I like, you know, knowing that I'm able to deliver something good. You know, I especially like mixing stuff that I have engineered, because I know while I'm engineering it, like, you know, what I'm going to need at mix time to like make it sound great or whatever. And I'm making all those decisions as I go, sort of as a producer. But yeah, that's basically a mix engineer. And then mastering engineer. Mastering is the last stage before it hits the masses. A mastering engineer takes a final mix, and basically they are like the final straw. So after it's been mixed, the mastering engineer is like, okay, compared to every other record out there, your record sounds whatever, dark. It's too dark, or it's too bright. I'm going to warm it up a little bit, or whatever. They have typically really, really nice speakers. And really, really nice doesn't necessarily mean nice sounding, but very, very accurate. So a lot of times when you know, when somebody brings their mixed record into a mastering studio and they turn it on, you know, if an artist is like there, they'll be like, oh, why does it sound bad? And it's because you know, these are bringing out all the discrepancies maybe in the mix, you know, or whatever. But typically a mastering engineer makes minor little adjustments. They'll do limiting to typically bring up the overall level, and also limit the overall dynamic range. You know, even in big punchy, you know, like rock mixes or whatever, sometimes a mastering engineer will still have to kind of like make it louder. You know, that loudness war isn't what it used to be, because streaming services sort of limit the volume overall of albums. And so the job of a mastering engineer is you sort of like have to have golden ears, and there's not that many of them out there. And so that's what a mastering engineer does. I think it's difficult to be a mastering engineer, because you have to have a crazy amount of gear, and like a high dollar value gear, and you have to really know your stuff. So that's basically the jobs in the studio. I've been watching the watchers go up and down a little bit. At one point we had like 7, and now we have 3. So hey, maybe not that many people are interested in this, but you three who are watching, or you two and me. I don't know if Eric R is still here. Don't know if you guys have any questions. I would love to field any questions. Ask me anything. I'm you might just know me as like a guitar pedal guru and reviewer, but I'm also a producer, engineer, and songwriter, and play a few different instruments: drums, bass, guitar, and piano. And I love the whole process of recording, and I love nerding out over gear, and I love all of it. So if you have any questions about any specific pedal, I've got my pedal board down here, got my Telecaster ready to go, my Starcaster's on the wall, got my new P-Bass behind me. Eric R is still here. He's my champ today. Love it. Where are you from, Eric? Sweden and New York City. Eric R. is from Sweden and New York City. Sorry if there's a lag. So, you know, I probably see your response 20 seconds after you write it. But that's amazing. I hope you're in Sweden right now. That would be amazing if the one person that's watching is from Sweden. I love Sweden. I have some Swedish blood in the family, as may be evidenced by the pasty white skin, the blue eyes, and the blonde hair. What kind of monitors would you suggest for a first-time buyer home studio setup? Great question. There are a lot of great options out there. The more important thing than even what you pick is learning those specific monitors. So the thing with monitors is you just have to understand them. You can get good results on affordable monitors if you know what their deal is. For example, before I had this set of monitors, I had another set, and in my room, this was back in Portland, I knew that I had to go, you know, to the second step on my stairs in order to like hear the bass in the right way. I have to do that less. I feel like these are just sort of, they translate a lot better, but it's just knowing like, okay, if it sounds good here, it sounds good, or I know if the bass is good here, it's going to be good in my car or whatever, or knowing the discrepancies of your monitors. Like, okay, I need to accentuate the bass more or less because these monitors do the opposite. So you kind of have to work opposite of what you would, you know, kind of normally think. And studio monitors aren't necessarily about like sounding amazing. You can get some nice ones to sort of impress clients or whatever. But a lot of times, and especially when I'm mixing, I actually mix really quiet because if it needs to sound good at a low volume. It's easy for it to sound great at a high volume because the bass is like kicking you in the chest and you're like, yeah. But once you turn it down, you're like, oh man, the tamborine's way too loud, or like the bass, I can't hear the bass at all actually, or whatever it is. So it's all about finding the right pair, and then also treating your room. The room that you're in, you probably can't see. I have like acoustic treatment up here on the walls, and my room's like pretty dead sounding, and I have all these absorption in the room. That is just as important as getting good monitors, is getting your room sounding like, because if you have weird reflections from the back wall or whatever, and it's like all this bass, happens, you're going to compensate like in the wrong way. You're going to turn down all this bass, but it's really your room that's accentuating all that bass, not really the monitors. You know what I'm saying? So all that to say, there are a lot of options out there, from anything from like a pair of affordable Mackeys to I like the company Adam, ADAM. They make like the A7. I think there might be a subsequent model. They may have discontinued that, but Adam makes some affordable stuff. Dynaudio makes some affordable stuff. I have Event Opal monitors. I think they're also maybe discontinued. Seems like companies make monitors and then discontinue them. I don't know why they do that. Genelec is a great company. They've been around for ages. Yamaha, if you can get like a pair of NS10s. I don't know if you've heard of Yamaha NS10s. It's the one with the white speaker cone. They famously don't sound good, actually, or depending on who you talk to. They're unpowered, and so you need to get an amp for them, and they sort of just sound fuzzy, dark, whatever, but they translate really well. So if you can get it sounding good on these sort of like crappy sounding NS10 monitors, then it's going to sound good like out in the real world. I often check not only on my studio monitors, but on my iPhone and my MacBook speakers, because sadly, that's where a lot of people are going to be listening to your song, or on like a Bluetooth speaker. Get your Bluetooth speaker and it should sound good on that, because that's like where everyone's listening to it. In the car, that's a typical like, doing the car test or whatever. So yeah, a lot of options out there, but I would try, something from Dynaudio, Adam, Event, if they still are making monitors, Mackie. has some nice options. But again, treat your room. Treat your room with duct board. Get some duct board at your local HVAC store. Cover it with fabric and just put it up everywhere in your room. Soft surfaces absorb sound, and hard surfaces reflect sound. So that's a generalization, obviously. But get a bunch of soft surfaces in your room. Get a couch. Get a rug. Get curtains. Get absorption. And then, because most of the time people don't have huge rooms. This is a bedroom in a home that I have here, and so when you come in with no acoustic treatment, it just sounds like a box, and you don't want it sounding like a box. For listening on monitors and also for recording, if you're recording your own voice or you're recording like acoustic instruments, it's good to have absorption in the room so that you get just kind of the direct sound of like an acoustic guitar or a softer voice or something just small and quiet in your room that you're recording. So yeah. We also got Mickey Blue Eyes there. Hey, Mickey Blue Eyes. Is that like from a movie or something? Nice. He says, nice guitar. Thank you. I could go through some sounds here for you guys too. This is my Benson. Tell me if like the guitar volume's like way too loud or whatever. Eric said again, would headphones work just as well for mixing or home studio use? Yeah, headphones work okay. It's hard to get the bass right with headphones, and also your panning is exaggerated when you're using headphones. What that means is sometimes you won't be brave enough to pan something hard left and right when you're listening on headphones because it sounds almost like it's like behind you. Whereas with studio monitors, your stereo field is not as wide, so you're listening to a sort of a more accurate or whatever. So if I ever have to mix on headphones, I'm always like, okay, don't be afraid to like put stuff way left and 100% left, 100% right, or whatever, just to get a nice big stereo field. The other thing is on headphones, vocals will, like anything you have in the center or like a vocal, you will think that you need it louder. So if I'm mixing on headphones, a lot of times I'll take it somewhere else and I'm like, the vocal's too loud. And that's because all of this wide stuff that's like, if you think about it, a pair of headphones is like having two speakers right here and right here. I mean, that's not the same as two speakers right here and right here, right? And so when you have it here and here, all of this stuff in the hard left and hard right is going to be sort of accentuated and like, oh God, it's so wide and so big or whatever. I need to turn the vocal up. The vocal's getting lost in that mix or whatever. But typically you don't have to turn it up as much as you think you do when you're mixing on headphones. So just be aware of that. Any chance for a lesson on EQ like the one you have on compression, especially for lead guitar in a live situation? Hey, Josh. Josh writes me on Instagram all the time. Josh, there is an EQ video on YouTube. Search my channel. It's there. It's called Equalization. What's it called? It's like EQ 101 or something. Hopefully I'm still live here and I didn't... what is it called? Let me just look it up here real quick. My videos go back and back and back. I don't know. It's there somewhere. If you go back far enough, I have a video on EQ where I talk about what it is and give you specific examples on drums and guitar and stuff like that. Stupid me, says Josh. No, you're not stupid. I'm thankful I was able to just answer that question. Hey, I've already made that video. Now I don't have to make it because I've already made it. But you said specifically for lead guitar in a live situation. Lead guitar live totally depends, absolutely 100% depends on who's playing, what's the source you're being given. But broad strokes, in general, 3K and 4K is kind of like a frequency that makes a guitar stand out, stick out in a mix. Turn that up. Maybe turn down like the low end. Anything below like 150 hertz, you don't really need it. That space, needs to be taken up by the kick drum, the bass guitar, whatever. I mean, really, like 200 you could cut. An electric guitar is the only instrument ever that I boost 300 hertz on. Everything else, I'm cutting 300 hertz. 300 hertz is like mud in a mix. So if it sounds muddy, cut 300 hertz. But on an electric guitar, turn it up. 300 is like the kind of like a ballsy low end of an electric. It's like... So, like the low end on an electric doesn't go much lower than 300 hertz, typically anyway. So yeah, that's just a little tip there. Paige says, hi Paige, best in-ear monitors for live performances. I am wearing 1964 ears. They are custom made in-ear monitors. There used to be only a couple companies, Westone, Ultimate Ears, maybe only those two, who made in-ear monitors. Now everybody is doing it. And they are all over the map as far as like the price. I got in on these. This is a company from Portland, and I got in on these like pretty early when they were still starting out as a company, so I got them for pretty affordable. Now they're like they're crazy money, but they have some entry level ones that are like maybe $400 and $500. Those are pretty good. I loved the I don't know if they still make them, but Westone, the UM2. Those are universal fit headphones. They probably don't make that exact model anymore, but if you go to Westone's site and look for the like their dual driver universal fit headphone, I loved those, and actually they are probably even more comfortable than like a custom made in-ear monitor. The thing with custom ears is like they fill up your whole outside of your ear, so they feel like a little bit intrusive at first. It's like, oh God, like it's like I'm being violated or something. But so anyway, 1964 are great, but there are countless companies out there. I would encourage you to like go find one that that maybe is a new company and they're trying to break ground or whatever, and they have good reviews. But there's a lot of them out there. I love these. I could upgrade them, but I don't really have any reason to. They sound great. They still fit in my ears. I've had to replace the cord for them. They have like a detachable cable here. I've had to replace those like several times because it's kind of gross. But your sweat like causes it to like rust out and it gets all green. I know when it's time to replace my cable when it gets all green. So anyway, any other questions out there? Love these questions coming in. You guys are awesome. Paige, Eric, Josh, Mickey, EQ 101, equalization, and I watched the whole thing. Yes, great. Fantastic. Cool. I have some new videos coming up that I'm very excited about. Not sure if my pedals... hey, give me 1 second. Gonna be right back, you guys. Be right back. Okay. I'm back. Do you have a process for writing guitar parts? Let me answer that right after I show you what I have coming up here. So, this is my most recent little bag of tricks. I mentioned on the other live stream, I got this guy, JHS Color Box, video on that coming up. Also, a recent favorite, Hudson Electronics Sidecar. Really great 808, like Tube Screamer type of pedal. Mojo Hand Colossus Fuzz, also coming up soon. The Adventure Audio power couple. And then some really fun pedals from a company called, now I'm going to forget the name, over here. These guys. I'm sending these back to them, so I have them packed up, but I will open them just for you. Copper Sound. You guys, have you heard of these? These are hilarious. Look at this. You guys ready for this? Here we go. This is the Broadway from Copper Sound. Let me see if I can, like, focus on that. It looks like a Telecaster pick guard. And it's, like, amazing and hilarious. They also have a another one called the Strategy that looks like a Strat. Here's that one. And focus. So these are like preamp type of pedals, and they will actually they'll actually like customize them to match your guitar, and I'm hopefully going to get them to do that. But I especially love this this one here. I'm going to try to convince them to let me keep it. Kind of like the Broadcast, it's got that preampy, like pushed, just sort of like wild sounding overdrive. It's really super aggressive, and I love it. It's great. Yes, Adam, my brother's on here, Adam Sturkey. I did just change the focus via the phone. That's how I roll. Any suggestions? Sorry. Process for writing guitar parts. You know, I'm like a songwriter probably before I'm like a guitar player, and so a lot of times my rule with guitar parts is they have to serve the melody of the song. So they have to work around the lead vocal. They cannot conflict at any point with the lead vocal. If they steal the spotlight, you know, don't let them steal the spotlight from the lead vocal. I heard someone say once that our brain can really only perceive 4 distinct parts, you know, at once, like 4 distinct like things, our ears in our brain. And so like I always think about what 4 things, if I'm doing a mix or whatever, or even writing a song, what 4 things do I want people to hear? And the lead vocal is already one of them. So if you have like a hook, that's like a synth hook or a guitar hook, maybe that's one. The snare drum, you know, maybe is another one, and the bass or whatever. All the other stuff, it's almost like the main engineer, Steve Beischer, that I worked for in Nashville, when I was talking to him about mixing, I was like, what are you know, give me some tips for mixing. And he's like, well, you got the vocal and you got the snare. Everything else is window dressing. And I loved that. And I tell everybody else that. Obviously, that's a gross oversimplification. However, that has rang true over my years of mixing and things like that. The vocal, get the vocal right, get the snare right, and you're good to go, you know, or get those wrong and it doesn't matter how much else you have right. Now, I'm dodging your question a little bit. Writing guitar parts, you know, typically I'll write more melodic, sort of harmonizing guitar parts. Again, it's got to serve the vibe of the song overall. If you got a happy, jumpy song, have a happy, jumpy guitar part. Have something that is like fun to play. You know, your tone should serve the song too. If you have a sad song, dial up a sad tone. Dial up you know, something with tremolo and something with a lot of low end and a lot of like feeling to it and a bunch of reverb and delay, whatever. But I don't have a set in stone process. But I have learned though, when I'm writing a part, to respond to my own sort of intuition in the moment. You kind of know when it's right. You're messing around with something. No, that's not it. That's not it. There it is. That's it. And or whatever artist I'm working with, I'm messing around with something, and all of a sudden the artist is like, that's it. Do that. Then you're like, okay, nailed it. You know, whatever. A lot of times it's there's not like a right. I don't think there's a right guitar part to like, you know, write to a song or anything. It's just whatever you write that day. And I think if you embrace that, then you won't be afraid to like try to come up with stuff, because it's like, well, this is just what we came up with today. Maybe we'll come up with something better tomorrow, but just kind of go for it and see what feels good. Eric says, any suggestions for a drummer, for drummer plugins for home studio recording, for writing drum parts without access to drums? So I'm assuming you mean like a virtual instrument drums. And there's a few that I use. The main one is called Easy Drummer by TuneTrack. And those are, I love real drums, and I am a drummer. So typically I don't love having to use, fake real sounding drums. But when I do need to, that's where I go. And that they have, I really like their implementation of their live kits, and I like their sounds too. They have a little mixer where you can obviously mix the close mics, but you can also mix in like room mics and overheads, and that's what that gives a little more of a like a real kind of sound. And they have some nice sounding, just pretty natural sounding like acoustic drums. Also, my friend Graham, who's the drummer in my band, he uses, I forget the name now. It's like Aggressive Drums or something like that. That's not what it is, but it's something like that. Yes, for demo purposes, that's what I use. I use Easy Drummer for demo purposes. That's a great one. I haven't thought, hey, I need something else. This sounds bad. I've been able to make that sound like good enough. But what I also find is if I combine the Easy Drummer with like a more electronic kit, like an 808 style kit, that sometimes people are more willing to listen to that, because it's like a little bit electronic and a little bit acoustic or whatever, and you can kind of demonstrate a drum part without people cringing and going, it's fake drums or whatever. But yeah, Easy Drummer is good. Can you hear the part in your head that you want, or do you do more plunking around till you find it? Depends, again, on the song and on the artist. Most often I hear the sound in my head, and that's because I'm not the guitar is the last instrument I've learned. So I started out on piano, and then moved to drums, and then moved to guitar. And only more recently have I really focused on guitar and guitar pedals and tone and things like that, and become super obsessed with it. And I actually really want to take lessons, because I want to get a lot better than I am. So my fingers typically don't really know what to do if my brain's not telling them. I don't really have the like muscle memory to be like, okay, I'm just gonna mess around with some scale until I hear something I like. So yeah, for me, it's all up here. And then I'm like, okay, how do I play that? Okay, here's how you do it, or whatever. So that's what it's like for me. And a lot of times too, since I play a few different instruments, I'm like, well, maybe it's a guitar thing, maybe it's not though, maybe it's a keyboard thing. I think that's a good question to ask when you're coming up with stuff, even as a guitar player. If you're like, oh, I came up with a sick part, at least consider, would it be cooler on a piano? Would it be cooler on a synth? Because maybe it would, and then maybe you can play something else or whatever. It's all about the song. What serves the song? Song is king. Song is queen. Which electric guitar do you think is the most versatile? Tough question. I think something like what I'm holding right now. Telecaster. Tried and true. You're never going to go wrong if you've only got one guitar. If I only had one guitar, oh man. I don't only want to have one guitar. I refuse to answer that question. No one really asked it, but I think my Starcaster is actually can probably do like the most stuff, but the Telecaster is more universal and probably has more applications, if that sort of makes sense. Obviously, you got single coils here, and my Starcaster, I've got humbuckers. Here's this old guy. I love hollow body guitars. All three of my guitars are semi-hollow. But I love this thing. I think with the dual 2-volume, 2-tone knobs, you can kind of get some more, combinations of tones. Also, it's just sort of a workhorse, like, you know, it'll sustain forever if you want it to. It doesn't buzz, you know, because of the humbuckers. And it just sounds great. Everybody who plays it, like, loves this guitar. So I can't say that about, like, my other guitars. Sometimes people connect with them, sometimes they don't. But I literally have not had one person pick this up and go, I don't like it, you know. I think it's because it's kind of unique. You know, not a lot of people have a Starcaster. But it's kind of like that, that 335 type of thing, but from Fender in sort of a quirky, different kind of way. Double track or quadruple record guitar tracks. You know, if it's like the same part, I'll really, like, you only need 2 of them, I think. Once you get more than that, if you think about it, because the reason you do 2 is so you can spread them out wide. 1 left, 1 right, and it just gets like huge, you know, or whatever. But even when I do that, I will sometimes switch guitars or switch pickups. Like, okay, this one's the middle pickup, you know, over here, and then this one's going to be the bridge pickup over here, just to get a little different tonal variation between the 2 sides. Once you start adding, like, too many, it becomes all of the variation in the tones and in the overtones start to become so sort of like, I mean, the more guitars you add, the less you can turn up each guitar, if that makes sense. If I just have 1, you know, big rhythm guitar left, 1 guitar right, I can turn those up pretty hot in the mix, and that gives me kind of the articulation and detail, rather than that little bit more overproduced sound of like, oh, that's just like got noise on it. I can't hear any part of you know, the guitar. It's just a wall of sound. Hey, if that's what you want, if you want a wall of sound, then do that. But I would also say just try it. Try just 2, turn them up in a mix, and then try 2 more and turn them up. But I usually just do 2. Maybe playing more instruments would also be helpful. Yeah. Hey, maybe. Anyone else have any questions? You guys are sweet. You're making me feel useful as a human by asking me all these questions. Adam just had a camera question. I love that. Typical Adam. That's the Pog. This thing's got presets. This is my ambient setting. Just go forever. That is my compressor into my my Pog with like an auto swell on, and then my Timeline, and then my Splash, my Crazy Tube Circuit Splash Mark III on 100% wet mode with like on the Excite is all the way up, the Decay is almost all the way up, and it's in mode 1, which is like the ambient mode. I love that sound. Sounds like angels singing or something. Just got to give more attention to that desk and roll out the keyboard tray. Looks great. Thanks, Ed. So this is my new desk with keyboard tray from a company called Output. They make plugins. They make like synth plugins and instrument plugins and stuff. And then one day they were like, "We're gonna make a desk," and it's like the best desk you can buy. For the money, anyway. You can buy, crazy expensive desks. But they were like, why isn't there an affordable desk that is awesome? So they're like, we're going to make one. So that's what I bought. Biggest issues you've encountered yourself, heard from others regarding home recording beginner mistakes? Good question. One thing I would say is people get scared to try something because they don't think they have the right gear, or whatever. And that's always what makes me sad, is like when someone's like, oh, I don't have whatever. I don't have all the gear you do, so I'm not going to do it, or whatever. Or I just don't, I'm worried what people are going to think, or whatever. I say just do it. Just do it. I've been just doing it for since I was in high school. Me and my brother were in a punk band, and we were like, we're going to record it ourselves on a 4-track, and it sounded horrible. But you know what? It sounded awesome, though. For the time, we were a little punk band. What do we know? But people loved it. It was great. And you learn as you go. That's the only way to keep learning, is just to do it. You have to do it. You have to just do stuff. Put stuff out. It might not be your most amazing thing. Maybe choose the audience that you show it to, right? Don't, nowadays we're so connected by social media and everything that I think people are afraid to put something out, because if they put it on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, it's like people will, they're worried they're going to jump down their throats if it doesn't sound perfect. But I would say maybe that's not where you share it. Maybe you just share it with some family and friends, and then, some people who you trust their opinion. I'm still very careful with who I show, especially my works in progress too, because I know that it's going to throw me off if somebody has a weird vibe too early in a song, and I'll get discouraged and I won't finish it, or whatever. So be wary of who you show your stuff to. Show it to the people who are going to encourage you to tell you the stuff that's good about it, and then be like, hey, maybe you could work on this about it. And that's not going to crush your ego to hear some constructive criticism. Probably when you put out your first thing, it's not going to be the most amazing thing in the world. So don't expect only amazing feedback, especially if you give it to somebody who you're like, hey, give me your critical opinion about this or whatever. But I don't know, you got to sort of manage your emotions with all that stuff. We artists are sensitive types, and it's tough to put stuff out there, but I would say just go for it. Life's too short to not do that. I want to hear your stuff. Send it to me. I'll tell you what I think. Instagram me and go, hey, what do you think of this song? I'll be like, it's awesome, or I don't like it, or whatever. I love giving my opinion. Obviously, I give it unsolicited on this channel, whether you're asking for it or not. I give you my opinion. That's what I like doing. But that's what I would say. Just do stuff. Mistakes people make, I think, is not doing it. Not doing enough stuff. Just keep doing it. Or they get so discouraged by I tried it and it didn't work, so I guess it's just not, whatever. It's not for me. You gotta keep trying it. You're gonna, as your skill set grows, your taste level is gonna grow too, right? So, as your taste level grows, you're gonna look back on that some of that earlier stuff you did, and you're gonna be like, oh God, I can't believe I ever did that. Sounds horrible, or whatever. That's totally fine. I've learned to be like, you know what? I didn't know what I was doing. Whatever. My punk band from high school. I don't care if somebody hears it. I don't care if somebody hears my worship band from 10 years ago or whatever. Sure, listen to it. I'm not ashamed of anything that I've done, because that's what I was. That's who I was at the time. You know what I'm saying? You got to get right with yourself, and that's what being an artist is like. Being a whole person is being okay making mistakes. And, honestly, a lot of people are going to resonate even more with the mistakes, that you make. It's like, oh, that note wasn't perfect, but I loved when you sang that note and that note wasn't perfect or whatever. So you never know. Also, do share it with people, because you sometimes don't know, even when your song is really good. until you show it. You know, I've sometimes written a song and I'm like, oh, I think this song's okay or whatever, and then I show it to somebody, and then the reaction is like, oh God, I love that one. And I didn't think they were going to love that one. I thought they were going to love a different one that I wrote. So the thing you resonate with most might not necessarily be, you know, what the public at large resonates with. And it's only by putting it out there that you kind of know, oh, this really gets through to people. They really liked this song or whatever. So yeah, I would just say make a lot of stuff. Thanks for the tips. We'll definitely send a track or two in the future. Sweet. Thanks, Eric. Uh-oh. My stream went off. Hey, if you can still hear me, don't worry. It's just because my phone died. My phone died, so I can no longer control my camera with my phone. But I think I am still live here. So as a producer, musician, Paige says, audio engineer, is it pretty much required to wear all black all the time? Yes, Paige, it is required. That is my wardrobe. You can sometimes wear gray, but it's very discouraged. You know, if you don't wear black, I don't think they allow you to come in the doors of the studio. I don't know why we wear black. Maybe we're, I think we want to be perceived as like really moody, and black is sort of a very moody, dark kind of color. You know, if musicians wore pink all the time, it would be like, who are these annoying people? But because they wear black, everybody's like, ooh, who are these mysterious people? Yes. But only very, very dark gray. Correct. Correct, Paige. Yes. Only dark gray. Dark gray. Sometimes I wear a gray shirt, and I'm like, oh, man, I don't know. You know, but, yeah. Yes. You know, image is like, that's part of it. I joke about it now because I'm 41, so I'm way past the point at which I think I'm cool. I very much know that I'm not. So now the whole image thing is just sort of like fun and a joke to me because I know I'm never really gonna be that cool. So I will, you know, we'll like wear makeup when we play live, and it's just fun because I literally do not care what anyone thinks. I'm just doing it because it's fun and I think it looks cool. So. Yes. If you've ever seen some video footage from Fell from a Star, hey, go check out Fell from a Star, you guys. If you haven't heard us, YouTube Fell from a Star, you'll see some, or check us out on Instagram. There's some video clips and stuff of us playing. If you look close enough, you'll see a little bit of makeup. We get a little more liberal with it each time. Actually, I was going to ask if there's any makeup artists in the Seattle area who would ever want to like do our crazy theater stage makeup. At one of our shows. That would be fun to have somebody else do it because I'm always like, what should I do? I don't know. I'm going to paint a line right here. You know, I want to look like a bird from outer space. You know, that's our vibe. But hey, I've been going almost an hour. I'm going to cut this off in the next couple minutes. So let me know if you have any other questions, and then I'll do this again. I loved this. This was so fun. I felt like I was just hanging out with my friends, shooting the breeze. Chatting music. Let me know if you guys want to hear anything. I do have my guitar set up with my amp and my pedal board. I got my Telecaster. My Gretsch is over there in the case. I've got the Starcaster here. Anyone else before we go? And then I'm going to wait for the next couple minutes so you guys can actually hear that question because there's a little bit of a lag. Maybe there's like a 20 second lag or so. Depending on maybe where you are in the world. In Sweden, I love that there's a guy in Sweden, Eric. Eric, you're a champ. I would love to come to Sweden sometime. Is Sweden a big, like, is there a recording studio I could work at there? I would love that. That would be amazing. My wife and I, it's our 20-year anniversary next year. So we are going to do this trip over to Ireland and Paris that we've been waiting to do since we got married, basically. It's been like forever. Maybe I'll do a little loop. How about that, guys? I'll do a little loop and then I'll like play over the top of it. I'm going to use my timeline here. Okay, I'm going to go into looper mode on my timeline. And let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the loop's going. Adam asked, is that Jeremy Enoch? It's probably a ripoff of Jeremy Enoch, but it's one of my songs that I've been writing for like 2 years. You know what he's thinking of? Wait, how do I stop it? Stop. He's thinking of. Where is it? Right, Adam? That's what you're thinking? Let me get to a preset here that this is like there we go. If I could move the weight of everything, blind the skies and change the atomic roll. Here I am and all the answers. I'm butchering this. Worldly scars will show this time. I'm still wandering around your door. How can I explain, dear? You've been gone for some time, but I still believe you'll be here. Oh no. Again. Okay. Apologize to Jeremy Enoch. He's probably watching this. But yes, that is like one of not only his best songs, but like one of the best songs, honestly. Jeremy's from Seattle. He's actually a friend of mine, and I've been in the same room with him so many times, I can never get up the nerve to go talk to him. The last time we played a show with a friend's band, and he was there, and everyone was like, go talk to him, Aaron, go talk to him. I'm like, no, I will not. I don't want to bother him. So that's my vibe. He's too much of a hero for me. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks so much for joining me today. This has been an hour and 4 minutes. I would love to start doing this regularly, just because it's super fun, and I love chatting with y'all. So thanks so much. Your voice sounds like Ed Sheeran. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. He's very successful. And someone gave me a little, Paige gave me a little A-OK, thumbs up. Hey, thanks for joining me. We will see you guys next time. Got some new videos, produced videos coming up. I'm going to do a live thing. Maybe I'll do a regular live thing. What time are you guys available? What time would be good for live? I don't know, evening? Maybe like a little bit later than this so that everybody can, you know, come check it out. Or maybe in the afternoon. You can, like, you know, turn it on while you're at work and pretend you're working. That might be good too. Again, thank you for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and stop this now. We will see you guys next time. Peace.